everybody, Sarah here to talk about Alien Earth Episode 6, titled The Fly. And there's just a lot of good things that happen in this episode. Like every episode of the show, they've all been really great, and this is yet another one that brings us some greatness. When it opens up with Wendy talking to the xenomorph, she's starting to develop sort of a communication with the juvenile xenomorph. We cut to like Joe and Kirst kind of standing on the other side of the cage from where Wendy is at, and Joe's like, is this safe? Is she safe? Is she okay? And Kirst is like, she took out an adult xenomorph. I think she's fine. She's behind 3 inches of glass, and she took out an adult male xenomorph. I think this juvenile, she'll be able to handle it. It'll be all right. And so Joe starts talking like how, he wants to be able to take care of her when she kind of graduates from the island. And Kirsch basically looks at him and says, you think that he's going to let you take her off the island? Like, no freaking way that is happening. And by the way, you can't take care of her. You're like an onion asking how to take care of a star. It's like she has so much potential than you do. Like, she's going to develop faster than light speed. She's going to be able to travel the universe for thousands of years and study and explore and do all these things. And, you're not going to just take her home and you're just going to be a happy little brother-sister family. That's not happening. So anyway, obviously Joe has some qualms about what they're doing and how she's being treated and is she truly safe or not. So we see Joe is definitely putting together a plan to try to get him and his sister off the island. We see him talking to his fellow soldiers about different ways to get off the island with boats and stuff like that. We also see him having a conversation with Arthur, where he goes in and talks to Arthur and is like, is she truly safe? And Arthur kind of gives him a meaningful look, and he's like, yeah, she's safe. Everything's great. Here, come on the computer and I can show you the diagnostics that show, her vitals and that things are going good. Meanwhile, they're having this conversation of like, oh, things are great. Things are going good. But Arthur's actually showing Joe some things on the computer, like an access code to get a boat. Like, he shows him that he can turn the trackers on and off. And so they kind of wrap up this conversation where there's been kind of this subtext of like Arthur helping him out, basically telling Joe that he's not safe and he probably should get her out of here. So anyway, then also Arthur sees that Toodle's tracker is not working, and his last location was the lab. So we'll get back to that in a little bit. Then we go to Nibs, who we saw last time has had basically kind of a psychotic break, saying that she was pregnant and all this stuff. So there's a scene with Adam, Arthur, and Sylvia, and Nibs is on the table sort of in sleep mode, so she's not hearing what they're talking about. And Adam's basically asking what's wrong. They've done scans. There's nothing mechanically, like physically wrong. And Sylvia's like, look, this is psychological. We knew she had some trauma in her past when we chose to take her on. This is just more trauma. I need time to work with her to get her to face the trauma, work through it, whatever. And Adam's basically like, no, we don't have time for that. We got this big shindig coming up. We need to have her at her best. So I want you to just erase the bad memories. Just erase, everything from, going to the tower, like forward. That she doesn't remember anything about going to the crash site, about being attacked by the octopi. And Arthur refuses to do it. And Adam says, fine, you're fired. Get off the island by the end of the day, or we can shoot you for trespassing. So Arthur just kind of storms off, and Sylvia agrees to do this, which she does. She erases her memory, and Wendy then meets up with Nibs later and realizes that this has happened because Nibs is not remembering anything about the creatures or the crash or anything like that. So Wendy confronts Sylvia and basically says, look, you erased her memories. You didn't ask her if you could do it. You just decided to make this change and do all this stuff to her, and that wasn't right. And by the way, I think the efficacy of everything that we're doing to these creatures, I don't think I agree with it, that we're cutting into these creatures, that we're killing them, we're doing these experiments and all these things. You know, we're doing all this stuff without any consent or care for maybe what those creatures are feeling or thinking or whatever. You know, and Sylvia tries to calm her down by basically saying, well, we had to do to Nibs because it was corrupt data and it may have, you know, made things worse if we didn't do this memory deletion, which is maybe true, maybe not. It's a little questionable. And anyway, Wendy remembers Kirsch talking about, why are we calling them people? They're not people. They're something else. They're something special. And Wendy basically is like, I don't want to be a person if that's what being a person is. I'd rather be the something else. And she basically, you know, Sylvia's like, look, we're here to help you. We want you to talk to us. So if there's issues or adjustments or things that need to be fixed, we can do it. And basically, Wendy says to Sylvia, you know what, you're saying that you're the solution, but maybe you're the problem. So it was kind of a little bit of a growing up for Wendy, of her kind of really beginning to understand how things really work. Then we go to another scene where Yutani and Cavalier are meeting to come up with a settlement to deal with the crash and getting the specimens back, etc. Yutani basically says, okay, $20 billion and the creature's back. And Cavalier's like, yeah, but you were bringing these creatures to Earth, these invasive species, that's not really legal to do it. And then Yutani quickly is like, we weren't bringing them back to Earth. They were going to be going to an off-world lab to be studied there. And so Cavalier's like, okay, they have to be under 6-week quarantine. After 6 weeks, I'll give you your specimens back. And so Yutani quickly is like, well, $50 billion to get the specimens back right now. And Cavalier's like, nah, I'll just take the $20 billion. And after that 6-week quarantine is up, we'll give you your creatures back. So anyway, there was just a lot of great tension in that scene and kind of talking past each other a bit, and just the underlying just hatred and tension that the different corporations clearly have for each other. I really enjoyed that. And towards the end of that scene, we see Morrow and Kirsch stuck in well, they're not stuck in an, but in an elevator together, and they have this very kind of really good tete-a-tete in the elevator between them. It was a fun little conversation they have with each other. So anyway, so Kirsch is flying back to the island. He calls Isaac. Hey, I'm not there to feed the animals. You need to go feed the animals. Make sure you follow all the protocols, ... And, you know, why don't you have Curly come in there and help you? And he's like, no, I'm a big boy. I can do this by myself. And Kirsch is like, fine, as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do. So Isaac/Toodles goes into the lab to feed the animals. The first animal he feels, of course, is the octoshibai, as I call it now. They're in glass cages, and there's a door on each cage that allows them to like open it on one side, put food in, close it, and then another door opens on the inside of the cage for the creature animal to eat the food. So that goes fine with the first one. The second one, which is a cage that has these giant alien hornets in it, and he goes to open the smaller door to put the food in there, and it's stuck. So he really pulls on it hard, and he ends up completely pulling the door off the hinges. So he's like, oh crap. So he goes to the computer, and he decides he's going to open the main door to the cage. So he opens it. He kind of keeps his foot in the door. He's going to put the food in there real quick and jump out. But while he's doing that, Octoshibai like jumps on the glass and startles him, and he slips and the door closes. So now Isaac is stuck in the cage with the giant killer hornets, and they attack him, and their venom, they have like acid venom, and it like stings him in the face, and you see his face melt, and they're like feeding on him, and it's like, ew. Anyway, so we cut away and we go back to Slightly. And now Slightly is working on carrying out the plan that him and Morrow had come up with together, which is get a person in the lab, let a face hugger loose, hide the body for a couple days, let whoever the victim is be implanted, and then contact me and we'll come pick up the person before the chest burster comes out, basically. So at this point, this is where we get back to Arthur. Arthur at the end of the scene with Joe, he sees that Isaac's tracker is not working and his last known location was the lab. So he goes down there to see what's going on. Now, Slightly standing outside the lab, trying to figure out how he's going to get into the lab to carry out this plan. And unfortunately, Arthur shows up. So Arthur knows the code. They go into the lab. He immediately runs to Isaac to see what's going on. And I'm not sure, maybe you can let me know in the comments, is Isaac dead or just severely damaged? Do they have his consciousness, in the cloud somewhere where they can download a copy? Or is Isaac just gone for good? I'm not real sure about that. Anyway, while Arthur is distracted with that, Slightly basically dips out of the lab, locks Arthur in there, and of course, Arthur gets face hugged. Slightly goes back in, hides the body. And it'll be real interesting to see what happens there, because also Kirsch watches all this happen, because Kirsch knows that Morrow and Slightly have been communicating and he kind of knows what the plan is. So it's interesting that Kirsch made the decision to let this happen. So we'll have to wait till, tune in later to see what happens with that. But I'm really intrigued to see what's going to happen there. Anyway, that's about, I think I covered basically all my thoughts on this episode. Anyway, it ends, of course, with the camera on the Octo-Eye sheep, and Keep Away by Godsmack starts playing again. Loving the soundtrack for this series. I'm definitely going to have to download it after it's done. If it's available, I'm hoping it is. Anyway, till next time, I will be back next week to share my thoughts. Please like and subscribe. And if you feel the urge to leave a comment, please do so. You have some ideas about what's going on with Isaac or any other comments you want to, please post them and I will read them during the week. And again, I will see you all next week. Bye.